Alright, what's up, yo? I did my first stream yesterday. Gonna try another one out tonight, just to see what it's up, see what happens. I want to go through this Stan Meyer video in pretty precise detail here, or as much detail as I can, and hopefully shed some more light on some of the work Stanley Meyer was putting out. So, yeah, here we go.
There have been several major releases of the technology. One of the areas of technology that we use is in reference to the dealership sales manual, which really describes in an overall view of the water fuel cell technology and what's involved in actually retrofitting the fuel cell to existing energy systems like that of the car, home heating, electrical generation, and so forth. We also have put together a very large research development laboratory.
Your car, your home heat, and energy generation. That's what Stan Meyer was about.
Manual that we do not release out in the public domain at this time, which covers the historical event and the step-by-step procedure in developing the water fuel cell technology. We have just recently put together and released to certain areas of the military, and there's several sections of the federal government as well as to foreign governments, the release on the very advanced forms of technology. In so many times, in cases of research development, once you start pointing a finger to new technology, you must explore that technology to the fullest extent and bring it into maturity. And the water fuel cell technology covered many aspects that the prior state-of-the-art of the scientific world had no answers to. In my files, I had the most scientific compilation study on hydrogen that's ever come out of the scientific world through NASA. And NASA clearly stated, in fact, that hydrogen was the most ideal fuel of the future, but they needed an answer in three major areas. Number one, produce the gas economically. Secondly, control the rate of its production. Thirdly, adjust the burn rate of the hydrogen gas to co-equal that of the fossil fuels, and we added a fourth step to be able to transport the hydrogen gas without spark ignition. We own all the patent rights both nationally and internationally in this technology. The technology was further developed to a process which we call a hydrogen fracturing process, which bypassed the scientific endeavor of developing hydrogen fusion. In this particular process, we can tap into the atomic yield of water and release it under control state in our laboratories or under normal room conditions and control the release of that energy.
Why does he say it's better than fusion? Because it's hyper-efficient fission. If you can get your hydrogen for little to no energy input whatsoever, do you really need fusion? Fusion's great, don't get me wrong, but it's all about what do you need your energy for. Water could literally be the perfect battery if we ran our society on it, but you know, that's a whole different discussion. But it is important to point out that when he says bypassing fusion, it's because this process of the hydrogen fracturing process is so efficient that it is almost free energy, quote unquote.
Calculations have showed that tapping into the atomic yield of water, that energy yield can exceed up to the 2.5 million barrels of oil per gallon of water. Basically, the hydrogen fracturing process utilizes a patented electronic circuit, which we call a voltage and
If you got 2.5 million barrels of oil out of 1 gallon of water and it's a fission process, do you need fusion? No. It's just like, okay, you've got a Boeing 777 that can fly 300 people, or you got a two-seater prop plane. You know, that's a terrible analogy.
Intensifier circuit.
Analogy doesn't even make sense.
We also developed another patented circuit called electron extraction circuit to be utilized with the hydrogen fracturing process that gives us the ability to disrupt the formation of the water molecule when the hydrogen and oxygen gases are being ignited. And by preventing the water molecule to take place during gas ignition, then we have an avalanche effect, and now we cross over to release this atomic energy. This type of energy yield can be utilized throughout our entire economy and all segments of the economy and do it in a control state. Its technology has the ability that we can retrofit to existing aircraft and run existing airplanes off of water, as well as heat your home, produce electrical energy economically, and also be able to run your car and do it in a very economical way.
So that's the gist of it. I was just going to say we can skip past that.
Now, I give you a little bit of credibility as to...
we can skip past this. The gist of it is, you know, we can do anything with water, basically. This is the process, and this is not just a hydrogen fracturing process. This is a universal process. What do I mean by that? If you were to say, I don't know, maybe look into fusion research, plasma physics, and then maybe alchemy, maybe you would see something like pulsing circuits with stacked arrays in certain configurations that are sacred geometric, maybe. This process between finding the correct resonance in your circuit, in your system, damping amp flow and increasing a voltage potential, pulsing that and allowing that process to happen multiple times is the way to unlock many, many things. You see this in antenna arrays where there's 40, 50 antennas looking at one thing, not tapping. How do I want to say this? When you see these big antennas that are all pointing towards one source, that's them individually collecting data to paint a more precise image. So, again, that's probably a terrible analogy. Man, my brain is just not working tonight. I apologize. Let's get to this. This looks like it's hard to look at it. Water fuel cell. What is this? Is that the burning process? Yeah. Or controlling the burn rate.
Been spent now on taking the technology of the water fuel cell and translate it into a pre-engineering model in order for us to be able to comply to the water.
I didn't want this to run too long.
Complying to NASA's first requirement to produce hydrogen and oxygen gas economically. By simply attenuating the high pulse frequency to a higher voltage level, we now could be able to control the production of the hydrogen gas on demand.
A higher voltage level. You're getting more punch.
In order to restrict amps and allow voltage to take over in a dead short condition in order to perform the electrical polarization process, we had to develop a new patented electronic circuit which we call a voltage intensifier circuit. This circuit allows amp restriction while attenuating the voltage potential in order to produce the hydrogen gas on demand.
Dang it, I did it again.
We had to develop a new patented electronic circuit which we call a voltage intensifier circuit. This circuit allows amp restriction while attenuating the voltage potential in order to produce the hydrogen gas on demand.
What is this circuit? It's partly a transformer. Here's your signal, your driver circuit. It's inductively capacitively coupling to this circuit. Here is a resonant coil, an amp inhibiting choke, in other words, that increases the voltage potential by building up electrons on these electrodes here, positive, negative, or whatever the polarity is. Either way. Same with this one, except for this one is a variable, so you can change the, you can tune it to that one, or vice versa. I believe that's what that is. It might be a something resonant charging choke. Yeah. So basically it's a transformer in and of itself, but it's a resonant secondary. So it's kind of like a Tesla coil in some way, except for the spark gap is the electrodes in the water. That's for adding light to the process. That's what those were. That's what this is. This is a gas processor. Just one variation of it. SansLegacy.com. Make sure to check them out. Here's the full stacked array with the gas processor on top. So you've got 3 water fuel cells. These each have electrodes in them. So here's one water fuel cell. Here's another one. Here's the third one. And then here's the gas processor, which has LEDs up here and a single electrode. So your water comes off of here, your gas comes into here and gets fractured again. It's hyper-efficient fission, basically.
We now inject laser energy into the process in order to cause the water molecules in the atoms to go into a higher energy state, which actually aids the electrical polarization process.
You pulse the atoms with light to aid in the electrical polarization process. Enough said. It's an aid. It's to stop the recombination of the hydrogen and oxygen once you've got them in gaseous form.
By subjecting the water molecule to the high pulse voltage frequency and attenuating the voltage amplitude now allows the water molecules to go into a state of ionization. This led to the development of the resonant cavity technology, which now gives us the ability to produce a very quantum leap in hydrogen gas production while we're keeping power input into a very minimal stage.
Why is that? Because a cavity has a specific structural effect to where it can hold a frequency, it can hold a charge within it. And once you've got it conditioned to that frequency, it becomes resonant with that, and it takes less energy to keep that frequency in there. So that's why I just said you can get a quantum leap in hydrogen production.
Cavity technology, which now gives us the ability to produce a very quantum leap in hydrogen gas production while we're keeping power input into a very minimal stage. We also found out that in our development that by simply staircasing or simply causing the resonant cavities to be stacked in a vertical array, the electrical ionized gases of one cavity enters into another cavity, which enters into another cavity to perform a compounding action that greatly enhanced the production of hydrogen gas on demand.
Ta-da! There it is. It's right there for anybody that's, you know, got a death wish. So there's another version of the gas processor, except for the LEDs.
Gas that's being liberated from the water molecule through the resonant cavity technology now enters into what we call a fuel gas processor. The combustible gas ions are now subjected to a much higher pulse voltage frequency while being subjected to even a higher intensity of laser energy. This causes the combustible gas ions to go into a high energy state, causing electrons to be released from those combustible gas ions.
So here's the control panel. See how cool analog stuff was? Like, yeah, there's a lot of switches and stuff, but it's no different than you having your little drop-down thing on your phone where you can click your flashlight or your timer or whatever. That's all this is. I'd rather have a car with this type of stuff than the freaking screen. You know? Just saying. It's a little cliche to be like, I get it, it's super cliche to be like, yeah, I'd like to have an old pickup that doesn't have any of the gadgets in it today. I don't want none of that technology. Like, I get it, yeah, that's super cliche, but on the other hand, it's super true, so.
To a much higher energy state, we had now to develop an electron extraction circuit that had...
So since the atoms are so ionized, so energized, they want to leak electrons. They have to develop, or Stan had to develop, an electron extraction circuit. This is where the quote-unquote cold electrolysis or over unity comes into play, because you can gather more electrons than you spend. I know, crazy concept. The second law of thermodynamics is not static. Wow, he figured it out. Kill him. No, just kidding. Don't kill me.
Had the ability not only to pull off the electrons from the combustible gas ions, but also consume those electrons in such a way that those electrons could no longer influence the combustible gas ions. The fuel gas processor, which we had assembled in order to test out the principle of the hydrogen fracturing process that gives us the ability to tap into the atomic yield of water. This research lab model can be miniaturized down to the size of a spark plug or even smaller in actual practical manufacturing applications in order to retrofit to existing energy-consuming devices.
Not just existing energy-consuming devices. All internal combustion engines on the planet could have a spark plug retrofitted to it that gets fed water and then has the water fuel cell and gas gun built into it, which the gas gun is the gas processor. It's the same thing. So you have that all built into this spark plug. Retrofit it to every single internal combustion engine on the planet. Now you see why he was murked. There's the whole thing again, but it's got a gas processor and another gas
now
processor.
Now is actually retrofitted on top of the series of resonant cavities that are arranged in a vertical array, much like what you see in this slide at the present time. The injector system is automatically controlled with the voltage intensifier circuits, which now allows the production of the energy to be controlled on a demand basis. The development of the hydrogen fracturing process simply occurs by preventing the formation of the water molecule during thermal gas ignition of the ionized gases, causing an avalanche effect that releases thermal explosive energy under control. The hydrogen fracturing process is totally and completely environmentally safe. On a controlled state, it can be retrofitted to any existing energy-consuming device within the economy. The water fuel cell has also been expanded in development of what we call an electrical particle generator,
the EPG,
that has the ability to move and attenuate a permanently magnetized gas in such a way as to produce electrical energy on demand.
Now, how do you get a permanently magnetized gas? Well, Stanley Meyer did it by sending argon through his gas processor. So you don't just have to use water. You can send argon through it, and then he, I think, used metal shavings to seed the gas as it went through the processor. And then through that inside of a tube with coils around it that would pulse at differential frequencies and send this magnetized gas through it, and then you could pick it up 180 degrees out of phase. So your signal's over here, your pickup's over here. You keep doing that all the way around. It's a free energy device. One of many Stan made, designed, whatever.
To accomplish the task, we had to develop an entirely new way of processing in order to manufacture a magnetized gas to allow it to operate and perform at room temperatures. This has now been accomplished in order to give us the design criteria of utilizing the electrical particle generator to combine it with the water fuel cell technology to produce electrical energy as well as gas energy from the fuel generator. It is now being combined with the hydrogen fracturing process to form a pre-engineering water fuel cell modular unit that will lend itself to mass production.
Well, that's probably enough there. I mean, we could keep going on, but I didn't want to make this too long. And I haven't seen the rest of it, so. Yeah, that's not exactly the most comprehensive analysis, but it's a good understanding to start with. Stanley Meyer was a genius, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinion. and he didn't get the credit he deserved because he got killed. So, you know, it's one thing to know about it. It's another thing to replicate it and do it for yourself. And then it's another thing to realize the implications of it not of already being done, not being mass scale, and the danger you kind of put yourself in if you publicly do any of this. So I'm not saying it's impossible. There's a lot of people doing it. And I know some of these folks. They're amazing. They're great. It's just, it always ends up at this question of authority. You know, who makes the calls? What's blocking our shot all the time, you know? There's just some kind of massive, beyond governmental Shaquille O'Neal stopping us from making a frickin' dunk every single time. I can think of like 40 free energy devices off of the top of my head at this point, and all of them have been suppressed. It's wild to see these things start coming out now, especially after I've like gone on this just insane journey of just trying to figure out what even electricity is, to now having a little bit of an understanding of plasma physics itself, which I didn't even know was a thing a year and a half ago. Plasma physics? What? The most I was told in school about plasma was that it's the fourth state of matter and to never think about it again, basically. So, yeah, I just wanted to learn where energy came from, how to make little electronic circuits, literally just as like a fix to keep me busy. Yeah, it's crazy. From the electric universe, or no, from ether technology to the electric universe was a journey, you know. It's been amazing. And my brain's not firing on all cylinders at the moment. It's been a long day. So, thank you if you watch this. I appreciate you sitting through my rumblings, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Peace.